Hello, we are back in the thick of life. How are
Yeah,
you doing today?
we're doing great. I am very excited about this episode, and it's a beautiful day here, very sunny. So, yeah, it's a good day.
Quite cold and rainy. Not cold, but very rainy and gray here. So we talked about our outfits today as well, how it's very different. So we decided to continue the same conversation we had last time,
Yes,
and specifically around the survival mode, quote unquote, and all other stuff, and the safety, quote unquote. And I'm using like air quotes very much on purpose here. So we will explore that today.
yes.
You want to say some things first?
It was really interesting to see your feedback after talking to the listeners.
I was like, did I?
After the last episode on the nervous system, and especially around this survival notion, which we talked about with Katja in our Telegram conversation. And we realized that one of the things, like it allowed us to deepen our understanding of this notion because we use the word survival with a connotation that is either negative or positive dependent, but usually,
Mostly negative.
yeah.
I haven't seen anybody use it in a positive way.
Exactly. And so I think sometimes the confusion when we say, or like what Katja said last week, that that our brain is always oriented towards survival, it can be interpreted as either good or bad news, but bad
Mostly
news,
bad.
mostly bad news, because we think it's, survival is bad. And so we realize that we're not using the same words to talk about the same things. Because when we talk about survival from a neurobiological perspective, it has no connotation. And it's very different from survival as in like the philosophical, spiritual, or psychological sense. And I think it's very, very important to make the difference because it changes completely our perception of our bodies and even our well-being and even who we are.
I would even go even further than this and just reframe survival in all possible senses and all possible aspects into something else. And specifically, I think it's also been like this conversation has been in many ways initiated or triggered. And again, another word that is very like trigger is bad. Is it though? This conversation, the episode that we did before that was triggered, and this one as well, by a lot of, especially like a lot of social media conversations, right? A lot of posting about how everybody's stuck in the survival mode and how everybody, like every practitioner knows exactly the 3 steps to get you out of the survival mode. And in my perspective, I'm in survival mode. That means that my body's functioning well. Great.
Exactly.
Very good. Now I can go and explore.
Yeah, exactly. And so now, like, you might ask, okay, but what does it mean when I feel like I'm super stressed? So that's where it's interesting to explain what happens and why we feel like there is a survival mode and another mode. And so the way I would articulate it now is we always survive, like we're here to survive. Like Katja and I, like right now,
We
our
are
bodies
surviving.
are surviving. Like it's good. Like it's a well functioning body because we're still breathing. Like we're here.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe, let's say, maybe Katja is functioning better than me. When I say better, it's in the sense that it costs her system less than me to be here. Because maybe I have processes or like what we call trauma imprints, quote unquote, or circumstances in my life that
History as well
history
depends on so many factors.
exactly that makes it maybe that forces my metabolism to do some adaptations or function in some way or need energy in some way so that I can keep being here. But both of us are surviving now. It's just that maybe it's less costly for Katja than me. And we wouldn't.
And this is also very like subjective, right? Subjective assessment. Who is surviving better? This is all like another one of my issues with this whole, like specifically, I think it's been formed with social media a lot. This language around categorization of this is good and this is bad. You're surviving or you're thriving. You're doing it better or worse. You're not, if you are not in thriving, that you're not doing healing well. For me, it's just like it does not make any sense.
Yes. And it's a huge trap because our bodies
Uh-huh.
don't work in binaries. Like
No.
we don't have like two roads, like one that is
Mm-hmm.
thriving and one that is surviving. It doesn't exist.
Well, according to social media, unless you reset your vagus nerve and then
Oh,
everything is good and well,
yes.
which is also, by the way, like such a pile of bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is why we really, really wanted to talk about this because it changes everything. And you like gain so much time and clarity and money when you understand this because
Yes.
then even when you're suffering of something, like let's say there's something that is painful or like you have symptoms, any kind of symptoms, maybe it's exhaustion, depression, anxiety, pain, whatever it is, then you start being like, oh, I'm in survival mode. And you're like, oh, interesting. Something like my body is doing something that it needs to do, like it's functioning correctly. And you also start to see your body as something that cannot be cut in pieces. Everything works together. So it's not like everything is fine, but I have pain. I don't know, like I have an issue with my liver, let's say. It doesn't work that way because the blood that is pumped through your heart also is going to go to your liver and then it's going to go surround your gut and then it's going to go into like everything. And so understanding that our body is the most intelligent thing as the rest of creation, like it's made by this intelligence makes us stop chasing symptoms and trying to solve them in isolation and just orient towards what will, this is interesting, it's forcing me to articulate it, like what is going to take us towards more harmony and resonance. I don't know if you have a better way of wording this, getting back to.
This is like, it's such a tricky territory because especially westernized languages, they are built already on the binary. It's very categorical. Like all the languages that I speak, which is, like some languages that I know the structure of, they're very linear and categorical and very binary. And so it's a very tricky territory to navigate very often. The things you just said, sometimes when I speak about these things, and then people go like, oh, so you say if I'm chasing the symptoms, it's bad. Or then it's like, I should be ashamed. Like, no, no, no. It's exactly kind of the whole point because we need to remove the body from this linear and binary context and put the body back where it belongs, where it's always been, but we just kind of forget and we bring it back into this mental obstruction of life. It needs to be put back into the relational and animate context.
Yes.
Beyond any binary of this is good and this is bad
Yes.
and like do this but don't
Yes.
do that.
Exactly. Thank you for saying this. Yes.
Yes. And so if you're just listening, if you're not watching this, there's like a lot of gestures going on right now. It's like, yes, and hands go into the conversation.
Yes, because I think this is what I wanted to articulate is that it's about relation. Like your body, like you are in a relationship to your body, and your body is in a relationship to itself all the time. And we are in relationship to other humans, and we are in a relationship to the air we breathe, to the land we are in, to the energies and fields that surround us, to what else? To nature, to the trees,
Everything,
like
like
everything.
literally everything.
We are
Yeah.
relational being. And so something I know for me, for someone who really comes from very mental habits, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
of viewing myself and the world, and quite binary also, and someone who wanted my suffering to just go and disappear, one thing that really helped me was just the inquiry on relationships. Like, how am I in relationship to my body? And just be in curiosity with this. How am I in relationship with things? And so, even if you go back to this conversation about triggers, Like triggers are really interesting. Like, oh, this just happened. Like this, me talking to this person, for example, resulted in something happening. Interesting. And triggers are extremely important for self-knowledge and also just relational knowledge for like being conscious of how we interact with the world. And so, yes, one attempt to get out of this good and bad, which I agree is extremely like we're exhausted,
Yes, absolutely.
can be okay, just inquiry.
Hmm.
How are you relationally? And I think this is one of the inquiries that's helped me a lot.
Yeah, and like one of the things you said, like I'm coming from the background of more like mental, and then something I hear and like all those voices of all the people who said this to me at one point or another, like, oh, so you say mental is bad, say thinking is bad? No, 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 right? It's like all about integration, and for specifically, I'm also thinking like about people who I work with a lot, which is like very often neurocomplex, neurodivergent people, very specific and specific composition of the body and the brain, and like a different structure of everything. And very often, actually, we discover that thinking can be feeling too. And thinking is a doorway to feeling, or even it's the same thing.
Hmm.
And sometimes when people tell me things like, oh, but I cannot feel, I can only think. I'm like, right, give me a month of your time. Right. And then there's like, I think it's a lot about the language, and it's also a lot about the societal structures, how we think about the body. And this, like, again, back to this binary relationship, it's this or that, it's bad or good. And if I'm not doing this, or this expectation that is formed by social media that is absolutely non-human and non-realistic, then I'm failing and I should try harder. And then before we came into this recording, I was thinking also that a lot of the times, actually, the healing, quote unquote, and we also must talk about what healing is actually at some point, that healing very often is kind of stuck in the hyper arousal of the collective nervous system. And then there's like chasing, and it's like, oh, and more of this and more of that. And I also know people, and again, there is not to shame anybody. This is something that also like, it's not something I just realized. It's something I knew for a long time, but like some days ago, it just like dropped on a deeper level somehow. That, you know how very often we would like think back to your past self at some point, and you're like, why didn't I do this? Like, but I knew, and then you go like into this whole shame guilt spiral, and and then, like, again, I knew this, but I didn't. But I knew, but I didn't. And then it landed a couple of days ago, like really, really somehow in a very profound way, that the body, like at any given moment, any given point of time, the body does its best, its utmost best with the resources and information it has. Period. And all these speculations, like, why didn't I? Pointless, absolutely pointless. Because the body did. Like, the body, as again, a whole organism that is woven into ecosystems, did its utmost best at any given time. And this is something also is like, there's a lot of attachment very often to the shame and the guilt as a part of the identity, I find. So it's like, it could be like a whole other conversation.
Yes, agreed. And it's really interesting. I had this conversation with a friend that we know, both of us.
Oh.
And it was really interesting because we were talking about the things we could have done better. Both of us are pretty good with this. Like we don't have lingering regrets or something. So we were really having this conversation like honestly, we could have done some things better, you know?
Mhm.
And so we entered into this philosophical debate of like, can we say that you actually missed part of your destiny? Which is an
Mm.
interesting, inquiry.
Mhm.
And I think we landed on you can fuck things up. Like it's a real thing. Like you can make bad choices and do things
Mhm.
sometimes because of the state of your body, like most often, and you perceive the world in a certain way. And so it makes you do things that you're later like, what? Why did I do that? And so I think like we are going to do that because it's like that's what being human is. And
Mhm.
so it became for me actually a fun game to play. Could I have done better? Because I grieved all of it. And so it became just this inquiry of, oh, it's interesting where my body was at that point and
Mm.
like how I perceived the world and
Mhm.
translate it. And realizing that, yes, in like the grand scheme of things, if we can imagine like the whole universe, maybe there was another road, like another destiny that could have,
Oh, for sure. There's
you
like
know what I mean? There are
limitless amounts. Yeah.
so many timelines. And I'm like, and I arrived at that point of realizing, you know what? I'm just going to have one timeline because I cannot have them all anyway. So, like,
No, exactly.
that's the game of life. You're just going to
Mhm.
try to do your thing. And maybe even just little parenthesis on this. Maybe, and I'm saying this as a Muslim also, like, maybe actually God is like, making you go like
Mm.
right or left because he's kind of like, no, no, I want you to go this way. Like, just stop. No, like, no, do this thing. And so maybe, at the end of my life when I'll die, is going to be like just perfect. Like, it's
Mhm.
exactly what needed to happen in the messy and in the quote unquote trauma healing and in the, and the triggers and the pain and, you know, all the things. So, yeah. But,
True.
also wanted to go back to this social media that you said and that
Yeah.
you need to be like this and like that. And maybe it's not all the problem, but I think it's really linked a lot to just capitalism, and like
Mm.
alienation of like your value is that you are, I don't know, fit and always calm and always achieving and
It was like the moment I will see a person like this, I will be very worried. Like
yes. And I think one of the funniest things of them all is cortisol. And you always
mm,
have low cortisol, Katja. It's very important.
I know.
Low
Vegas
cortisol.
nerve Vegas nerve reset, cortisol phase. What are like the latest? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know even anymore.
And yeah, I think it's really capitalism because when I still see today, which is good news in Morocco, because I live in Morocco, I still meet sometimes elders who really do not see life like this. Like they still exist.
Mm,
People who like philosophically and spiritually, they're not in they don't even know that
yeah.
we were going through it. Lucky them. And they actually see disease as it is what it is,
Mhm.
and not something to be solved. And especially not something to hyper obsess about instead of living life, which has become a thing.
Yeah, exactly. The hyper healing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's mostly viewed as something that maybe in some, you know, yeah, maybe for some people might be like, it's too bad because you can't do all the things you want to do. And so it kind of inhibits how your soul would want to express. But like that must maybe even be like the only little pathologizing part of it. But most people that I meet who are really disconnected from the capitalist
Mm.
philosophy really don't care about disease. They really don't care.
Exactly. A lot of this, I think, also comes down to entitlement, the feeling of entitlement, and the ego-based obsessions around and perfectionism, and a lot of this is also rooted in whiteness, and this is like such an uncomfortable conversation. And I've been asked so many times by people to not use words like oppression or white supremacy or like oh la la la, or like no, this is too serious and too big, can you please not say these words, like it's supposed to be uncomfortable. But a lot of this is like rooted. It sits, and I'm unlearning like every day, right? And I'm not saying like I figured it all out. I know it all. I'm unlearning and learning every day. Like having these conversations helps as well, right? Like having a lot of conversations that it's all like again, it's all relational, and it's I find it even hard to say it, like explain it in words, because it's so deep and so felt, instead of like me just saying it is relational, like go have conversations means nothing, and like but when we are in actual exchange and we can disagree and we can say like actually I don't think so,
Yeah.
and have like actual normal human conversations and around all those things. This is like where the juice of life is.
Yeah. And, I don't know why I'm thinking about this hearing you say hearing you talk to having real, raw conversation. Wow, I have a thing here written. It's actually written having real raw conversation on this piece of paper.
What?
Yes, I was just, playing with papers as we do.
Yeah, yeah,
And I was just writing things that I wanted more of in my life. And this is the first of the
of
pile.
course.
I didn't know this. Yes, because I just got back to work a few months ago, as you know. And it's just crazy how all of the clients I've been working with, they all say the same thing to me after third, fourth session. And it's not even like yes, they are feeling better and like there is way more resonance and all the things. But like the thing that comes over and over again is it feels like actual real raw human exchange. And I'm like, yeah, I know you don't have those in life, which is a problem. Because I always say, like, yes, we are trained practitioners and it's important, obviously, for many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like, I realized that part of my job shouldn't even be a job. Like, it's just you're supposed to be
Exactly.
able to have a conversation with everyone.
Yeah.
So when my clients tell me, wow, I feel like I can be my whole self with you and like there's no shaming, I'm like, yeah, I know. And that it's a
Mm-hmm.
problem. It shouldn't be
Mm-hmm.
just me,
Yeah.
you know? And I think, yeah, I'm just realizing we don't talk about this often. And we need also like many, like, yes, one on one, but also groups and also like different types of, so that it becomes culture making and so that we can
Mm-hmm.
change because so many people feel like they are just them against the shame field, the shame culture, the
Mm-hmm.
shame
Mm-hmm.
economy. But honestly, we really can change it if we focus on the relational. Like if we create relational spaces
Mm-hmm.
that are maybe not unshaming entirely, like if we want to go out the binary, but like that make the effort of unshaming and being real and raw over time.
And I'm just thinking that the word relational and relational work, quote unquote, has been polluted as well. And what it means very often, like when you read like relational semantics or da da da, and what it is eventually is not relational at all. And it's just like some eye gazing and some touching, which is not relational work in my opinion and my experience. And it should start so much more, like it's so much deeper and with non-human and like really building a relationship with life.
Hmm.
And again, in my experience, it's kind of building up to a human because is it like maybe
I
the
agree.
most difficult, right? The human to human relationship.
Agreed.
It is very like also realizing, like really, really realizing, like deep in the core, that when humans are involved, it will be there will be friction. It will be difficult. It never will be like all rainbows and unicorns, how the social media shows, like we had a community gathering and everyone's like loving and hugging each other and there's like a cuddle puddle and everyone is happy. And it never happens like this in
Not the
real
cuddle
life.
puddle. I can't.
And everyone is like, one big happy family and there is no friction ever. And I was like, right.
And honestly, confession, when I see promotional videos or like after retreat videos or photos of women retreat, I think I'm more angry when it's women because I want
Mm,
women to be a little bit more
mm-hmm.
sympathetic, you know?
Aggressive. I was like, aggressive. Let's bring
And you see them
aggression.
all like in like goddess dresses and being like, ha ha
Oh,
ha, 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 ha. And I'm like, no, you need to fight each
no.
other.
Yeah. Here's a sword. Go fight
Exactly.
now.
And I think honestly that if I do a retreat and I wanna organize one, we're gonna fight. I'm gonna do practices when we fight each other because we need charm. I
Aggression.
mean, you
So
know,
much. Yes.
we need aggression that doesn't take away respect and dignity and
Yes.
so important. So important. And I wanted to say I'm so happy we're having this conversation because so many times I'll have clients who struggle relationally with other humans. And I'd be like, okay, can we like forget about the humans? Can we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the sun? Let's talk,
Mm-hmm.
let's
Mm-hmm.
orient toward other things. And what happens over time is that when you have like a stable habit of relating to non-human or more than human world, you have a different sense of belonging. And
Yes.
so I noticed that you naturally have a lesser tendency for fawning or like people pleasing or
Oh,
hypersocial.
yes. Yes.
And so a lesser tendency to manipulate, coerce, control, or expect people to be what you want them to be. And I noticed this happen to me a lot. And so I would love to talk about safe spaces. Now that we're talking about this, because, the concept of having a safe space is one of those illusions that were invented, but that don't mean anything and are just used to replace coercion, manipulation, control, and expecting other people to behave the way you want them to behave. And I think that this is why so many people struggle with boundaries and all those things, is because they don't see the phenomenons or patterns of wanting to control or be, or
Mm-hmm.
like being, having no tolerance for friction, like you said, for conflict, for difference, for not agreeing. And it comes around to what we were saying about survival, is that we have started to use the word safety and safe spaces in relationally or even spiritually, like I feel safe in the world, or like philosophically in general. Whereas the actual word safe, we started using it in a neurobiological sense again. Because like for your nervous
Neutral.
system and my nervous system, there is a sense, like we can use words like threat, danger, safety. Because yes,
Yes.
like if I am outside and I start being chased by a bear, physiologically, my body is going to be like, we got to do something. We
Mm-hmm.
got to move,
Run.
you know?
Freeze.
Exactly. Or like, just in the trauma,
Yeah.
if I'm,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
I, if I'm triggered by something that reminds me of my history, my body is going to feel unsafe. But
Mm-hmm.
in real life, I might be safe. You know what I mean? So like there
Mm-hmm.
is a difference in perception. And so the problem when we use the word safe in relational, like for example, I'm going to give an example. It's going to be easy. Katja is not a safe space to me. And I would never expect her to be a safe space to me.
Thank you.
However, I expect respect, I expect a certain level of care. And I think honestly, that's it. And I expect intelligence, but that's because,
It's just because you know me a little bit.
but like anything could happen. She could
Yeah.
say or do or be
Yeah.
anything. And I would just be like, okay, fun. Let's
Cool.
go with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. We're all with it. Yeah.
Exactly. Like even when I share with Katja things that are very vulnerable, personal, I just expect her not to be aggressive, violent, shaming. Like that's the only thing that I expect. I don't
Mm-hmm.
expect her to. And even if she were to disrespect me, I would just interact with it. Like,
Exactly.
we would go towards repair or
Yeah.
towards rupture if,
Yes.
if you're not available for repair or if you keep doing this or, you
Exactly.
know,
And yeah, can I also add here something like it's such an important point, right? Because we mentioned it a couple of times, like intolerance for friction, intolerance for rupture. Yes, those like for sure this is happening and we need be more resilient with all of this and the actual human interaction. And some people are assholes.
yes.
That's it. It's like it's that simple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my biggest rule for life for myself is don't be an asshole for self and for the other person and nature and world. Like obviously, like just don't be an asshole. And sometimes I am, because I'm a human. Sometimes I am an asshole, and I try. This is my practice every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And exactly like what you said, like once the rupture is happening, and sometimes it's just like how much is too much. That's the question. And some people are just like they do not match, and there's too much friction. And it's like, oh, I cannot even be bothered. Like, no, I don't have capacity to deal with any of this. Totally fine. Like what we're saying is doesn't mean that like you should be able to handle any friction,
Mhm.
like any amount of friction and any quality of friction between humans. No, like some people are just like
Exactly.
it just doesn't work,
Yeah.
right? And there is like a certain dissonance, but then it doesn't mean that you are wrong or the person is wrong, but also because it's relational, that you come together with someone and it's just like suddenly everybody becomes a toxic person, right? Like we all probably had this relationships. Like you enter an orbit of each other, and suddenly there's like all kinds of stuff, and you're like, who is this person? Like, how is this happening? Like this is the ask me how I know situation, right? Been there, done that. Not proud of it, but again, the body did its utmost best in relation to that specific person
Exactly.
at that point of time with the information and resources I had. Again, there's no point in being like, oh, no, no, why did I do this? What should I heal even? I don't, because now it's not happening.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't need to go and like excavate and be like, so okay, like, so, but what was happening?
Mhm.
Like, and I am able to recognize certain dynamics that are absolutely like not healthy for me. I know when, again, when the two bodies will come together and this dynamic will be activated, like I don't have to go with it.
Exactly. 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 And it's interesting, you know, you're making me think about judging. So many like
Mm.
don't judge. It's not good to I judge people all the time,
I
thank
judge.
God.
I
You know?
judge so much. I roll my eyes
Exactly. And
so much.
yes, and I think people need to understand that there's a big difference between judging, which is literally forming an opinion,
Yes.
and shaming, you
Yes.
know? Or like using your ego. Sometimes when I judge, it's not because I want to make myself feel better. It's just if I see someone hitting a cat in the street, I'm going to judge that person. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be like, I don't want to be near that person.
Yeah.
That person is not going to be my friend. Like, it's my boundary. And so, even if you have a big heart and a big soul, you can have compassion for that person, like for their soul and the way, and be
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I wonder why they behave that way. Like, how did they grow up and what they learned that made them violent? And yet, boundaries, I do not want to relate with that person, you know?
Exactly.
And it's honestly, it saved my life relationally to realize this, to be like, I am not here to be inclusive. Like, there's a difference being
Exactly.
inclusivity,
Yes,
being an idiot, you know?
exactly.
And maybe mothers will understand this because most of my mother friends, they become much more protective. I feel like
Mm.
of their homes, they're like, this is not getting it.
Yeah,
I think, you know, it comes with the biological need to
yeah,
like,
yeah. Discernment, like a really good practice of discernment.
yeah,
Again, we need more of that, please. Everybody.
yeah. And having your own sense of discernment because
Mm-hmm.
when people okay, I'm gonna just a little bit go out of the topic because I just posted a reel yesterday talking about people who come on the internet for public outrage and also tell
Mm.
you your behavior is a colonial behavior and a
Yes.
hypocritical one and blah 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 blah. And I've seen so many people actually go learn from those people and just like absorb the shame and just
Mm.
stay in paralysis. You cannot have discernment if you just listen to what someone else tells you you need to do.
Yeah.
Like growing up is having your own sense of responsibility and being able to say, the behavior I did yesterday was not okay. You know, fine, you'll do better next time, you know? And that's how you discern
Mm-hmm.
the good, bad, how the person I want to be, my boundaries, who I want to relate with, blah, blah, blah. But you cannot, this is like my advice for everyone because I've been there. Be careful who you teach, like who you give
You
your money
learn
to
from.
and who you even like who you follow on social media. If it's
Mm-hmm.
someone where
Absolutely.
you feel that it makes your discernment wobbly and it doesn't give you your own power, like to discern things, honestly, you don't
Mm-hmm.
need them. Like,
I had so many clients also like, oh, I follow all these people, and there's like a list of people, and they really make me feel bad about myself. And then I go like, so why are we following them then? What is the point?
exactly. It's like there's this coupling of, in order to be a good, responsible person, you need to
Mm-hmm.
be shamed.
Mm-hmm.
Please uncouple because
Yeah.
you can learn to be a very responsible activists even like very aware of the consequences of what you do without ever being shamed into understanding said consequences.
Yeah. And then I want to go back to the safety
Yes.
topic. I mean, it all is about the safety topic. And really, yeah, to me also. Like some people, and it's currently it's happening less and less because I'm also showing up on social media and on this podcast and like everywhere where I am in person spaces, like everywhere, I'm just like, this is it. Like some people are assholes, you know? And it's like, this is it. Like, this, what you see is what you get. And if you cannot handle this on social media in a, I don't know, 10-second clip, you definitely do not want to join any of my containers. This was happening before, more in the beginning when I started doing this as work. Right? People would come into my one-on-one or group containers and have a certain expectation, kind of a projection put onto me, like, you're the practitioner. You are supposed to have things figured out that I don't have figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do something wrong and the wrong bit is not according to my made up expectations of you, although I don't know you as a person at all, then you are a bad practitioner. Not one, not a safe one, not a safe practitioner, not a safe space, right? Which is like, it's bound for a failure.
Yes. 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 Thank you. I wrote it safe space / therapy on my
Yeah.
because when we were talking about Katja and I, it's easy to say, okay, well, but Katja is your friend. What about your practitioner
Mm.
or therapist? Do they need to be your safe place? No,
No.
because there's no healing in that. That's actually the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you're missing out on an actual healing experience if you go to a practitioner expecting them to give you what you want. What is really important, and this is, I think, we're having this conversation as trauma resolution experts, but from a professional perspective, is that what actually heals trauma is for the two people, like you and your practitioner, to be in a supportive and cooperative relationship where you both inquire for the right conditions that are going to help you, metabolize and like move
Mm-hmm.
out,
Mm-hmm.
or resource and stabilize and like all the things we need. So this inquiry, um, even if like the practitioner is trained, the practitioner doesn't have a prescriptive power.
Well, some think they do.
Something they do exactly. But honestly, as a client,
Mm-hmm.
don't go to those. You're missing out. Go to people who are going to help you rehabilitate your own sense of consent, of choice, of exploration, even if maybe sometimes it will go nowhere. And because it also rehabilitates your right to disagree with your practitioner, even to rebel against your practitioner, that so many of us need sometimes when we have developmental trauma where our
Mm-hmm.
opinion was never heard. Rebellion is also important. And also because having like small ruptures with your practitioner is very interesting because then you get to repair. And these are really great experiences of healing. That if you go to a practitioner being like, they need to be perfect and solve my problems, you're missing out on what you actually need
Mm-hmm.
to develop the skills to heal your trauma. Curious if you have other things or examples.
Not an example, but like an extra aspect to this, because sometimes also, and I've experienced this happen with me as a client, as a recipient, right? When you disagree with a practitioner or teacher and they go into the mode of like, oh, this is your resistance, it means that you just don't want the healing or whatever. Please run.
Because precisely, we're going back to the beginning of the episode. Your body never resists. It doesn't exist. Human bodies do not resist. They function. And so if you are in front of a practitioner who doesn't know how to relate to how you're functioning, you're just gonna
Run.
run around,
Run.
around, you're never gonna stop. The amount of guilt and shame, it reminds me of that client who was like, I don't even know if I want to start working with you because I went to so many
Yeah.
psychologists, therapists, psychiatrists, naturopaths, you name it.
Mm.
And I just feel like I'm always a bad student. And I'm like, oh man, if you ever feel like you're a bad student with me, I will give you your money back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would never make you feel like you're doing something wrong because then, we're moving backwards.
But this is kind of, this is the fuckery of it. One aspect of fuckery around it. It's become almost like a business model. How can I make myself needed
Yeah.
and necessary for someone? For me, it's the other way around. Like, how fast can I kind of get rid of you, in a good way, but especially if we're working like on a thing, And kind of in my work also I tend to, and lately there's been the direction where my work is moving, is not to even work on a thing. We
Mhm.
don't work on things. We do like other stuff that changes the thing by default because of all these relational layers that are built in. And so it becomes like a very different way of quote unquote trauma work that I'm kind of still in the phase of definition, because it is trauma work and it changes everything, but also it isn't in a way how, if I say trauma work, people would again come with expectations and expect something. And then the bodyverse opens the doorway. It's like, hey,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. But also, it's also our job to educate on those things and like
Hmm.
how over obsessing on your trauma is such a bad idea. And I think every trauma resolution practitioner agrees on this.
Hmm.
Wherever you were trained, honestly, over obsessing on your trauma, on your symptoms is a trap.
Yeah.
So yes, I
It
do
will
agree.
only create like more grip around
Exactly.
all of this patterning.
Focusing on other things in your body, resources, relationships with more than human, like all those things.
That's the living life versus making healing your identity, which
Exactly.
again I've seen happen so very often. But like, how about we just live life in a way that feels like wizardry and artistry?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. It's living life. It's funny. Yeah, yeah. I just had this conversation with someone who was like, I don't want to start the same person. I don't want to start therapy. And I said, when we won't do it.
Uh-huh.
We can just chat, honestly, bring coffee, stay in your PJs at home, let's Zoom. And she was expressing so much her need to just laugh. And I said, if we can do that, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, we don't have to do serious things all the time in order to get better.
Life is serious enough.
Exactly. Orienting towards lightness and laughter can actually be trauma healing for so many people.
And again, this is very different from the love and light
Exactly.
bypassing
And it's not
situation,
exactly. And it's
right?
not
Very, very
necessarily
different.
avoidance. It depends how
Yeah.
it's done.
Again, just to make it super clear, this is not what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not about like bypassing any of the difficulty. And this is also something that I find that takes time and a lot of integration and harmonization to be able to hold like your experience of difficulty without kind of talking yourself out of it, or without like making it like bypassing into love and life or whatever, and at the same time orienting to actual life movement at the same time as it happens, like in real time at the same time, which is again very often starts as a mental concept, a very hard mental concept, because mentally, like it's so very challenging to understand. Like, but what do you mean? Is it like, do I feel this and then that one? And do I just like think about this one and then I think about that one? And like, no, no, no. But it's not, it's like so beyond mental.
Yeah.
And like the moment it clicks, you can never unsee it, like unfeel it.
Exactly.
And then
It,
it's like again a lot of repetition and a lot of practice. And again, back to the, I think it was like somewhere at the beginning of the previous conversation, that your brain runs on prediction and on patterning, right? And new capacities can only be developed in repetition.
yes, exactly. And so one capacity that needs repetition is focusing on the good. Because when you're hyper focusing on the bad, you need another habit. But so interesting what you spoke onto because it's to me, I see it like a tension field.
Mm,
Like I can stay with you in your pain forever, and we need that. And at the same time, also, like, can we reorient? We
mm-hmm,
don't have to stay in it. So it's like this tension field, or I can sit with you in your pain for like 24 hours.
mm-hmm,
And it's like authentic forever that is so healing in
mm-hmm.
many cases. And also know that we don't have to because sometimes we feel like, we're stuck in this, no, but I have to. Like we think like
Yeah,
we're gonna
yeah,
get a
yeah.
prize if like we and so having someone be like, we don't have to is also extremely healing. And so there is always this tension field in what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying on like feeling and sensing what is needed at each moment and staying with that inquiry. I feel is like one of the really fun things about what we do. I mean, I love this.
But it's all like this is exactly it. It's all about this creative tension in between. which is exactly where the body lives. The body is this like ecotone, the imaginal, the in-between place.
Yeah.
It's an actual place that lives in between. So like really learning to have a relationship, like an actual relationship with these creative tensions and the opposites, quote unquote. Which are they really opposites? I don't think so, but again, can be like a whole other conversation. But really, it's a dance in between always.
Mm.
And it's a never static place. It's always a very dynamic place. And I just had a thought, and I thought it was very good. And now it's gone. And
No,
I'm not gonna edit it out because this is like a real time thing.
I want to know.
Me too. It felt like, oh, this is so good. But maybe it will come back and it will become a whole other episode.
Yeah. Okay. Safe space. Did we say everything?
Probably not. It's like, you know how it goes. We record and then we start like chatting with each other and send each other
No, you know
messages
what?
like,
We didn't
what
speak.
about this? Like, what about that? And we didn't. So maybe we could like do like this whole deepening
Yes.
into this.
But wait, there is one thing I think we will both be very, if we don't speak about it, is because we talked about safe space relationally and in the body, but we didn't talk about the spiritual meaning of it. And we've had this
Mm,
conversation. It was such an interesting one. It was a few weeks ago. I was
yeah.
traveling. I remember that day. It was about the fact that there are no guarantees in life, you know?
Yes.
Like when we use that safety concept as, like, even when we do healing work in general, and we use the word safe as something that we apply to our soul and like our being and not just our
Mm-hmm.
physiology, then we start expecting something that is unreal, like it doesn't exist. And I think it's spiritual trap because then you expect the world to be like, or you expect your life to be comfortable where it's never going to be,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or you expect your dreams and what you want to achieve and your hopes and all of this to be somewhat guaranteed, you know?
Yes. Or yeah, this goes also to me, a lot of this goes back to the entitlement. And it's like, I want a successful business and a life like this and live on Bali, la la la. It's like, sure.
Exactly, you know?
Yeah. And then when I don't get it, it's like, oh, I didn't get it. And it's like a lot, so much entitlement around just the the human ego based very often desire of something and then not getting it on your own terms, right? We also expect life happen on our own human individual terms, which is ridiculous at the core, right? And then get upset about it.
Exactly. And this is exactly the trap of New Age. The
Mm-hmm.
actual problem of the New Age movement is not, you know, this crap and blah 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 manifestation. It's not even that. It's that it does self deification,
Yeah.
you know. And when you consider yourself to be God, like really, not just being divine, but being like God,
Yeah.
then you think you are relational with the universe. I'm gonna ask the universe, but it's not, because you
No,
think the universe is your bitch. So it's not relational at
it's the
all.
other way around.
And so, exactly. And so, please, everyone, know that you are the universe's bitch.
Yeah. And or even the universe doesn't care about you. Nature
Exactly.
doesn't care. The earth doesn't care about any of us. And I was thinking about my mom said a thing. She's a very like highly intuitive person, but not educated in any of this. And sometimes she says things and I'm like, you know how one goes, is like, no, like I know better. And then some time goes by and you're like, all right, this was like so on point. So I'm learning like better and better to recognize the wisdom as it happens. So
Good.
one of the things she said, because one of the things I experience, and she as well, and my sister, and is like in a whole lineage, is mast cell activation syndrome. And sometimes it is like really bad. And lately it's been so much better for me. But some years ago, and I had like a horrible summer. Like almost every other day, I would get like a really big reactions to the point that I was just like out of life. And I
Mm,
was complaining. And I just really felt horrible. Like everything felt horrible. It's like mental, physical, like everything is just, it's really bad. And then I was complaining to my mom, and the only thing I wanted is to be just seen in my suffering, like recognize my suffering. And I was like, why does nature hate me? Because I went outside and had like this horrible reaction, like swollen everything. And like, yeah, I don't even want to think about it. And I was like, why does nature hate me? I feel so bad. And my mom went like, nature doesn't care. Like, it's all you. Nature doesn't care.
Newsflash. Yeah.
And then, of course, like then I was suffering, and I did not want to hear that at all. But actually, nature doesn't care. Universe doesn't care.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is the trap of, I always say that the left in general in the West is very hypocritical
Yes.
because, and I don't even know if people are ready to hear this truth, but people
Say
say,
it.
yes, climate change, we need to fight for the planet, nature, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually want us to have a regenerative, ecological relationship with the rest of life, you will also accept human loss.
Mm-hmm.
And so uncertainty and unsafety for humans, which means completely moving out of the anthropological philosophy of humans being the center of the world. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing where the left is never like, it's like, yes, but only if we can still have supremacy. Yes, for the planet, but only if we can stay at the top.
Yeah. There's so many conditions to the yeah.
Exactly. And I think being radical, not in the sense extreme, but in the sense going to the root,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you really want to be radical, just accept that,
Mm-hmm.
just accept human loss, just accept that we stop centering ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's easy because human loss is horrible, but honestly, capitalism is fairly recent. Comfort is very, very recent. And so, like, just I was having this conversation with my dad, and we really need to do an episode on heritage and ancestral
Yes.
things. But I was having an amazing conversation with my father, who we were talking about his tree, and he was telling me about his mother and his blah, 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 where he grew up, all the things. And then he said, yeah, well, my mom lost 3 babies, not
Mm.
miscarriages. They were alive babies. So
Yeah.
he needed to bury 3 babies. And I stopped at that and I was
Mm-hmm.
like today we would treat that as a disaster, which it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
imagine losing your child is horrible. But at that time, he said, yeah, well, you had people to grieve with you. And it was fairly common. And I'm not saying
Mm-hmm.
that we need that type of loss. I'm just saying that
Yeah.
humans know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an actual greater capacity to grieve if we are in a relationship. Like if we want to have an actual
Mm-hmm.
ecological, fair relationship with the rest of nature,
Including death. Exactly.
including death. Exactly. Because that's that's a very capitalistic thing, because capitalism is like growing and growing and growing and growing and growing and growing, and like nothing never dies. So it's the opposite of the
Yep.
cyclical nature of life. And so it's not just an economical system, it became the way we view and live life. It became the philosophy and spirituality in which we live. And so even like when we do healing work, quote unquote, we often forget, like we put ourselves in that type of geometry that is
Mm-hmm.
actually a capitalist geometry. But, but actual health, actual human health is death. Like it's the
Mm-hmm.
circle, the
Yeah.
spiral, and.
But actually, if you really like for very real with yourself and you think about it, in the end, health is death because then dying is very healthy.
Exactly.
So in the end,
Yeah.
health is death. And like, how do we include it? And I just wrote it down for the future episodes. We must talk about the obsession with longevity and
Yeah.
anti-aging and stuff. So that's coming.
Agreed. But so one thing I wanted to say about it, if you want to have an anti-capitalistic view on your work, as for example, practitioner or thought leader or whatever, start first by questioning your geometry of how you interact with life instead of going on Instagram telling people this behavior is capitalistic. This is, I think what we actually need is to examine our geometries. And if
Mm-hmm.
we all did that and we all did that like individually and with each other, we would change the world. And it's not like me being like, we can do the revolution. No, it's like
But we
really,
can.
You know, when you change the geometry, a lot of things change. And I'm happy I use the word geometry, not because I love math, but maybe because I love math, but also I think it's a great way to get out of the literal linear way of thinking about our psychology,
Mm,
you know? And one of the best things that helps me in life is to stop thinking linear, to heal myself and be like, wait,
yeah.
what's the shape? What's the form? What's the geometry?
Pattern. It's all about pattern, resonance,
Yes,
pattern, geometry. Like that's at the core
exactly.
of all things. That is
Yeah.
it.
And so here's a
Yeah.
suggestion, quote unquote exercise. So like game, if you know,
Homework.
yeah,
Everybody's getting homework.
homework, write notes, is try to next time you're annoyed with something like your anxiety or like whatever, try to feel into the geometry. Like,
Mm-hmm.
does it have a shape and does it move in a direction and does it want to do something, anything? And just be curious. Don't even do something with it. Just because it allows you to get out of the story. And not that the story is a problem, it's not always
Mm-hmm.
the case, but it just helps you go somewhere else and actually notice the different momentums and shapes because you don't even have just one. Like I could have something going on here, but then
Mm-hmm.
something else going on here and something, And it's really freeing to just realize that you are shapes and patterns and movements, like
Mm-hmm.
the trees, like the tree leaves with the wind and the ocean and the tides and waves and all the things. I feel like it helps remind us that we are the same. We just have movements like the
Yep.
rest.
Exactly. Simple. At the core of all things. Things are very simple, but then the humans are very complex as well.
And just I want to finish on this because I'm watching these days. It's my current obsession. I'm watching dissections of connective tissue. I love it. I'm watching video. I have work to do, and I'm like, now I need to watch this.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's crazy. Honestly, I'll send you the link if you're interested. But it's amazing because you see that well, we don't have like just the superficial fascia. Fascia. It doesn't have the same shape in our
Mm-hmm.
body. Like our thighs, apparently, they're so different from our belly. That is so different from our
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
skull. And but every one of them, like every shape, has a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easily found in nature. For example, I think it was the thighs. I'm pretty sure. But the thighs shape looked exactly, those big leaves, tree leaves, and when you look at the nerves of the leaves,
Yeah, yeah,
you see those exactly the same, And it's the game I'm playing now. It's not even about fascia. I'm just like looking, like
yeah,
I
yeah.
watched the documentary. I'm like, what does it look like? What does it look like in nature? And so it's the game I'm playing currently, and it's so fun. And I'm realizing that the more I do that, like the more I watch those videos and try to like compare with things in nature, the more I'm like, wow, we're all one. And so that's also an exercise, quote unquote, you can do because it allows you to change your point of view. Like you said, mental is good. And so getting information that is good and helpful is good. Not everything is somatic. Everything goes through the body.
Yes. Well, we can also talk at some point, make an episode about like what is semantics, because nowadays everything is semantic.
Yeah.
Everything
Well,
is semantic. So
okay.
we will talk about it. And on
Do we
that
feel
note,
complete?
yes,
Okay. Me too.
the end.
The end.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
next time. Thank you. I love this episode.
Me too. See you next time.
Bye.